and welcome to Soulful. All right. Hello again. Welcome back to Soulful, a podcast experience for those who can appreciate a unique blend of honesty, humor, and maybe a little wisdom every once in a while. And my name is Drew. I'm the guy doing the sharing. And in this episode, in honor of the beginnings of fall crisply in the air and football season kicking off, I'm going to share a little bit about gambling and the role that it has played in my life. The years I spent definitely deep into a gambling addiction. And then, some of the recovery journey coming out of that. And then also, I'm going to touch on what I consider the three different highs that come with gambling. And I think that'll make for a nice little journey, nice little episode here. And sharing on gambling, definitely inspired by this first weekend of football. Yeah, it's just wild how gambling is infused into every element of sports these days. And definitely football, right? I'm using that as the primary example. Yeah, when I first started playing on my own, because I started super early. Like, my grandfather was taking me to the horse races. I might have been 6 or 7. I don't know. So I could handicap a horse before I was 10 years old. But, more on that in a minute. Yeah, it's just wild how today every sports show, every channel has some element of either gambling or fantasy betting involved. And that was definitely not the case 20-something years ago. And so I'm super grateful that, I had my journey when I did, and it crashed and burned when it did. And now I'm about 12, maybe 11 or 12 years into recovery specific to gambling. Yeah, because this scene, it would be tough to get out with so much stimulation. And then also having the phone, right? So constantly able to just click a couple buttons and make a bet and get into the action. So I'm glad I learned when I did. Yeah. And so I guess, let's walk you through the journey here. Give you some insights. Oh, being visited by a bee. Get out of here. All right. Actually, let's start. I'll give you some references. So, my active drug addiction took place from about 17 turning 18 till about 24 turning 25. All right, so 6-7 years, we'll say. My active gambling addiction, though, I started gambling, like I said, 10 years old at the horse races, betting $2 per horse, because that's what my grandfather would give me. And he would do this with all the grandkids. He would take us to the horse races, and we'd get $20, and we'd bet $2, on one horse per race. And then as I learned more about it, then I started betting exactas and trifectas and all that. But so earlier than 10, I was exposed to gambling. But I don't think I fell into addiction level gambling until maybe 20, 21. Yeah. And then that ran through me getting clean and sober from drugs and alcohol. Right, so my active gambling continued until I hit a bottom about 6 years into sobriety or recovery. So And I think this is a cool point to make, that, like, we can be addicted to multiple things, and our journey of falling into addiction, acquiring the sufficient pain, and then hitting bottoms or coming out of it, whatever that journey is, like, that can be different with different stuff. And a lot of us, we might come out of drug and alcohol addiction and then discover we have like two or three other addictions, which is what I discovered. Like, I got clean, and then it was 6 more years of gambling before I hit a bottom that rocked me to then start the recovery with gambling. And then it was a couple more years until I hit a bottom with cigarettes, with nicotine, which is a mean one too. And now I've been smoke-free for, it's got to be close to 10 years now. 8 years, something like that. But anywho, just providing a frame of reference, because I will frequently talk about my addiction, and most of the time I'm referring to drugs and alcohol specifically. Like, my clean date is January 31st, 2006 from drugs and alcohol. But I didn't stop gambling until December of 2012. And I don't know. I want to say I wasn't like fiercely addicted at that time. It was just different than the drug and alcohol addiction. We'll say it like that. Yeah. And I think we'll come back to this too. So multiple recoveries. And also shout out to anybody who's in any kind of recovery for National Recovery Month here in September. But multiple recoveries is part of my experience. And today, or in this episode, talking about gambling. And the journey began, like I said, way back as a little nugget. And this might be cool too, to understand the family system around me. So I'm a little nugget born into a family where my mom's 2 older brothers are deep into gambling. Whether they're an addict or not, that's a discussion for another day, but they were about it. And then her father, right, my grandfather, was also big into gambling. And all of the like holidays, right, family holidays were planned around the different sporting events. We would eat dinner around what game times were. And and sometimes the holidays were fun if my uncles and my grandfather picked the winning teams, and other times they were less fun if they picked the losing team. But I got born into a family system where gambling was accepted as just part of the deal. And what I've come to understand too, through my work and then reflecting on the family dynamics and generational patterns, is that my grandfather's father was actually an alcoholic. And so my grandfather didn't go the path of alcoholism because he saw alcohol, right, like front row ticket to what that could do. But there wasn't any actual like healing done, so the addiction just morphed or changed forms. So that's how I understand that kind of addiction energy running through multiple generations of my family. And then it definitely found me. and I was cool with all of it. Drugs, alcohol, gambling. That was a sweet spot. Those were the addictions that provided me with the necessary pain for the rest of my journey. But so I'm born into a family system where gambling, that form of addiction, is just accepted. It's just part of the deal. And nobody's doing terrible shit or like beating wives or like all the bills are still paid, right? It's all of the classic justifications for why it's not a problem. And again, it's easier to judge it from the outside than to recognize it from the inside. But gambling was definitely just a significant part of me growing up on my mom's side of the family. And my grandfather was a genius in some ways, because he had like picture in picture before there was picture in picture, right? So we're talking late 80s, and he had a setup that was amazing. He had one giant television, and then he had another TV, a smaller TV on a stand. Right, that was the living room. And then to his left, he had a radio where there was usually a third game going on. So when I would go over for the weekend, because I would spend some weekends at my grandfather's, yeah, he would have 2 games on the TVs and a third game on the radio. And usually it was college football or professional football. But I was there a lot on Saturdays, so it was a lot of college. And then he had his stack of the sheets that had all the spreads. And again, this is before you could just click buttons, or you could semi-legally bet online. So there were phone calls that had to be made to certain shady characters, to facilitate all of this. Yeah, and it was like in my recovery, I've been able to recognize that a huge part of the attraction to gambling for me was that it was male bonding related. Right? Like, especially as I got older and then I had some of my own money and I could make my own bets through my own bookies, I could go to the family events and then, see who had what, who took who. And then, this Christmas, it's me and my grandfather took the 49ers, and then my 2 uncles took the other team. But then at Thanksgiving, it's me and one of my uncles take one team. So it was like I was in on the family bonding as well as being in on the action. And I'll talk more about action later, because that's one of the highs. It's not just about winning when it comes to gambling. It's about having action. And so, yeah, there was like male bonding that became easier with the gambling at play, right? Because there was like common interests. Because a lot of y'all can relate. The further we go up in generations, the less like honest, vulnerable, authentic connections we find, more often than not. And so here was this pathway into being able to, connect and cheer and cuss and carry on and, be a man amongst the men in my family. And so, gambling was part of the family framework. And then I would play here and there, and I would do stupid stuff. Like in high school, we would roll dice for lunch money, and there's a certain thought process that starts to develop too. Like if I can win rolling dice, then I have enough money to buy cigarettes and lunch and, take a girl out or something like that. So like there's certain thought processes related to gambling that are also very catchy and sneaky. And so those were there early on, like trying to find shortcuts by making bets. And then I went away to college. And it was a brand new setting. And I was partying a lot at that time. And one of the dudes that I met at the fraternity, who was like larger than life to me at that point, was huge into gambling. And so I knew gambling from growing up in it. So me and him just like clicked. And he was kind of like my, I don't want to say fairy godfather or like older brother. I don't know. We just had a connection. And, but it was because we loved all the vices. We would get high on lots of different stuff and then gamble. And so we connected in college, or when I was there and he was on his way out. So we connected briefly. But then a few years later, we reconnected. And then that's really when my gambling addiction went through the roof. Or through the floor, however you want to understand it. Yeah. And so we were getting high and gambling, and that created these really big swings where one weekend we'd hit a bunch of games and we'd have a ton of money, and then we'd have a ton of drugs and we'd party our asses off. And then the next weekend we'd lose a bunch and then we had no drugs, and so there was withdrawal and the angst of losing and having to duck the bookie and having to duck the drug dealer who we owed money to, right? Until the following weekend, when we could bet with like a new bookie and win to then pay back the other bookie and then get enough drugs to like, it was chaos. It was complete chaos. And a part of me loved it, and a part of me was getting ripped in half. Yeah. And I'm grateful because I do think the gambling accelerated the pain. Like if I had just been getting high, like that sucked. But then when it was like one weekend I was a god and had all the money and all the drugs, and then the next weekend I was a piece of shit and had no money and no drugs, like those extremes, just like it was really hard to go back and forth. And I think that was part of accelerating my pain and then the journey into recovery. And and I think maybe this is cool here. And so when I would gamble, my main thing was betting on sports games, baseball, football, sometimes basketball. And then like I made a couple visits to Atlantic City, but I was also gambling way before I was like legally allowed to, right? So by the time I was 21, I was actually already withdrawn from college for the first time and in South Carolina trying to get my life together. So like I had already hit a bottom hard before I was even 21 and could buy a beer or get into a casino. But over the next couple of years, I had AC a couple times, had some mostly terrible times. There's just nothing like walking out of the casino in Atlantic City at some odd hour in the morning, just completely empty and gray and lifeless. Oh, it's awful. Ugh. Yeah, my soul can feel that and hates it. Yep. So my thing was mostly betting on sports, and then some trips to the casino. And and I was a dummy. Was I a dummy or did I just like the action? Yeah, probably I was just hooked on the action because I would bet like everything. So instead of picking like one or two or three winners, I would bet like every game that was on, and sometimes even like both sides of the game. It was degenerate, super addictive. Insanity. All right, hold on. We'll pause here. So that's how I gambled and got high. And I was gambling and getting high with my buddy for a while. And then I wound up hitting the bottom. Oh, I left Jersey. Left Jersey, went down to Florida. My buddy actually came down and visited me. We got high as shit, lost a bunch of money gambling down there too. And then a couple months later, I hit my bottom. I got my DUI in Florida, which cracked me open. I've shared about that in other settings, so you can you can listen to one of the earlier episodes to get that story. But essentially, I hit my bottom with drugs and alcohol, and that propels me into recovery. So now I'm clean, I'm abstinent, active in the recovery process. But I'm still gambling. And it wasn't as like intense or as bad. It was just sometimes. And there was also male bonding associated with gambling early in recovery. Like hanging out, betting on a couple football games just to hang out with the guys and talk shit and eat wings, do that whole thing. And then a lot of people in early recovery switch addictions. All right, like if we're honest, early recovery really is, can you find a less lethal substitution while your brain starts to heal and you start to get your footing? And so for a lot of folks, that's gambling. And so I made friends with a bunch of dudes in early recovery that were all about gambling. the way I used to do it. And so then I started back in again. Yeah. And I was like 4 years clean, still losing entire paychecks. You know, like my whole 40 hours a week working in a rehab trying to help kids make better decisions, that whole paycheck would go to the bookie. And yeah, that's just not a fun feeling. And there were no drugs and alcohol to numb that anymore, right? So you just got to deal with raw loss, which is ugly. And so I played with it first couple years, and then in India in 2012. So my first adventure to India. I shared about that a couple episodes ago too. But I get there, I hang out, I have a really rough experience, essentially like a 30-day long panic attack, and I come back from India way earlier than I thought I was gonna. And I had money set aside. Because initially the plan was to be in India for months, and I came home after 30 days. So there was money left aside, and I came home broken with my arm in a sling, and it was the beginning of football season. And so I wasn't feeling too good. I know that gambling's a way I can make myself feel differently. And so I started into gambling. And within like 2 weekends, I lost most of my cushion. And I remember the second weekend. Yeah, I think I lost like $500 on one game or something, because I bet it 3 different ways like an idiot. But I lose all that money. I'm panicking. I'm freaking out. I'm looking up Gamblers Anonymous meetings, and yeah, you know, just spiraling in the bottom. And I decide, all right, like I got to do something different. And again, like I don't know what to do different, but I know something has to be different. And I feel like I've been in that moment multiple times in my life. But anywho, I lose all that money. I hit a bottom. I spiral out. And so I decide, okay, I'm definitely taking next weekend off. Right? Like within like a couple days, it went from I need help, I can't stop, to I'll take next weekend off. You know, classic addict self-talk justification syndrome, whatever you want to call it. But that next weekend I took off, and I felt the itch start coming back on, you know, watching the games. But I got a call that Sunday night that my buddy from college that I had connected with over the years, that I had gambled with so much, that he actually had died as a result of, I think it was a little bit of party and also the meds he was taking for his mental health. And yeah, so it was an accidental overdose, and he died just out of nowhere. And it rocked me to my core. And yeah, and it felt like in that moment, it was like, okay, the message was clear. It was like, all right, to honor his memory, like I'm done, I got to be done. And that was the last time I placed a bet, or the weekend before, right? Like I never placed a bet again after that. Yeah. There was a lot of feelings, a lot of grief. Yeah, as I'm now like revisiting that moment in time. Yeah, it was wild. Like I said, the Sunday before, I was freaking out and ready to check into rehab for gambling. And then by midweek, I talked myself back into maybe playing, but let's take a week off. And then by that Sunday night, yeah, I found out my buddy Joe passed. Yeah, and it was so clear that I was done with that. And so I miss Joe a lot, but I'm also super grateful for, yeah, like the gift that he was able to give me on his way out, to be free from the chaos and that nasty gambling addiction energy. So, love you, Joe. Got me in my feels, man. Joe was a beautiful soul. He was a little tormented. He liked to hang out with some of the darker energies, but he's a great dude. And when I got clean, it was hilarious. He was like my biggest supporter with never having a desire to ever get clean himself. Like, he was still getting high all the time, but he valued my recovery and my clean time, and supported the hell out of me. So it was cool, because not a lot of people have that, right? Like, not a lot of us leave active addiction with the people we're getting high with encouraging us to leave. but he did. Yeah, it was funny. He'd be like, yeah, like, you use the way I use, and both of us should get clean. But he was pretty much resigned to, he wasn't ever going to get clean, and then there I was with the opportunity. So yeah, love you, Joe. All right, got me all my feels. So Joe's passing is the beginning of my recovery related to gambling, or really the beginning of me applying what I had been learning in recovery to gambling. All right, because again, winter 2012 or fall 2012, I'm already 6+ years into the recovery process, working all the steps, taking all the suggestions, or most of the suggestions, and then also doing years of counseling and yoga and meditation. So, like, I'm already deep into the process actively 6 years in. And so I was able to really kind of just take gambling and put it in the same category as drugs and alcohol, and apply the whole, one is too many, 1,000 is never enough approach of abstinence-based recovery to gambling. And so haven't placed a bet on a sports game or been to a casino since, but I did play fantasy football like a maniac. Yeah, there were a couple of years of fantasy football that at first it was kind of cool, and then it started to get a little crazy, and then, like, my last season I was in 5 leagues, and it just had taken over my life, and it was very clear that the addiction energy was back in just a different manifestation, right? Like, fantasy football had me spinning in the same way that betting on the sports games did, years before. So I let go of fantasy football. Again, before the apps made it so easy to bet on every part of a game, which I'm so grateful for. Yeah. And then I've stopped going to, like, poker nights. I can't even tell you the last time I went to a poker night. Because, again, what I've learned for myself is certain behaviors get the wheels spinning in a certain way. And so I think one of the last times I played poker, just the way I was thinking about things and just the energy of it felt like, ugh. It didn't feel clean. It felt like dirty, or it felt, I don't know, like not good. And I noticed that my thoughts started spinning in certain directions. I'm like, oh, this is that too. Okay. And so it's got to be 5 or 6 years since I've even done like a friendly, like $20 buy-in poker game, just because I don't want to deal with the bullshit that activates in my system. And so, so here I am today. It's coming up on 12 years. That's cool. 12 years without making any bets. No casino, no sports betting, no racetracks. And it's got to be maybe 5 or 6 years, since I let go of the fantasy football stuff too. And also, like, I'm aware that betting on sports or playing fantasy football isn't evil. I just am also aware that I have a certain reaction or response to engaging those behaviors, and and I don't want to pay that price anymore. I don't like living like that. It just doesn't feel good. Oh, the bee is back. Hey, get out of here. Come on. All right. So there's the story. And and I think that then I'll conclude here sharing a little bit, or the second half maybe, talking about the 3 highs of gambling as I have understood them. And so the first high is probably pretty obvious. It's winning. Right? Like, it feels good to win. It feels good when you place a bet and then that thing happens and then you get money back. It's money in the pocket. It's also a certain inflation of ego and a sense of clairvoyance, or, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, the high of putting a bet and it coming through and you thinking you know some stuff about how things are going to go. Yeah, that's sexy. For me, at least. Yeah, it's like a deepening or a strengthening of the illusion of control, or that I know what's going on or what's going to happen when you win. On the other side, it's not as fun. Yeah. And so winning is definitely a high because it's money in the pocket, and it's also an inflated sense of, yeah, I'm a fortune teller and I can see things and I know stuff. And that's one of the tricky parts about a gambling addiction, is that it's not an obvious loss. So I'll say it like this. When you buy a 6-pack of beer and drink it, or a bottle of something, drink it, or, powders or pills, or, whatever your thing is, shoot it, snort it, smoke it. You put the money in, you get the stuff, you do the stuff, you feel the thing, and you're done, right? Like, it's one whole experience. And it's cool, until it's not cool. With gambling, though, it's nasty because part of the, investment into it is that potentially you can continue to recreate the experience. Right? Like, imagine if you could drink something or smoke something or shoot something or whatever, and there's a chance that if you do it right, you could get a whole full bag or bottle, or you could get more drugs just from doing the drug right. All right? And that's what's available in gambling. Like, if you pick the right thing, you get more money to be able to continue gambling. And so, yeah, man, and that's it's scary and sticky, and that was something that definitely kept me going for a while. And then it also impacted how I bet. So, if I had $50 or $100, instead of just placing one bet on one team and letting it all ride, I would bet 10 different things, but at longer odds, with the hope that $5, one of those $5 bets would pay off 100 times or something. Which is just, some people will tell you a parlay is a sucker's bet, or, long shot bets like that are just degenerate moves. And and I'd have to agree from personal experience. Yeah, smarter gamblers make single bets with information. But I was not a smart gambler. And I also, as much as I loved winning, the second high for me was I loved the action. And so when I talk about the action, I'm talking about the experience, the feelings, everything that's happening for you while the bet is placed. And this could be, from the moment you buy the ticket on a horse, right? So say you place your bet on a horse and then the horse race goes off. For that 50, 60 seconds, there's a lot of feelings that go with the event unfolding that you have money on, or that you have a vested interest in, a specific outcome, right? So there's feelings there. With sports games, obviously, right, there's winners, there's losers. I mean, even with if you're playing table games, right? So say you're playing craps or something at a casino, even blackjack, putting the bet down and then the anticipation of the card flipping, or the way the ball is banging around at the roulette table, right? The action is itself a high. And so whether you win or lose doesn't matter as much as actually being in on the action. And so for me, yeah, I became much more an action junkie, is a term folks will use. Like, I didn't really care half the time if I won or lost, because I was playing both sides of every game in weird ways. I mean, there were multiple times where, yeah, I got real high and then realized I bet against myself. And it's like, oh, all right. Well, that was dumb, but now I can root for both sides and still feel like I'm winning. It's so dumb. Yeah. So, first high is winning. Feels good to make money and to feel like you know what you're doing. Second high is the action itself, right? Getting in on, for me, I'm telling you, I literally had a dozen bets on a Saturday and another dozen bets on a Sunday. And so there wasn't a minute from like kickoff at 12 p.m. till 10 p.m. at night that I didn't have some bet active. So I was like vested. I was involved in everything. And getting stoned out of my mind the whole time. Yeah. For a while, that would have been the ideal day of my active addiction was football games all day, or maybe a season of the year where there's football and baseball, right? Like September, October. And so just betting on all kinds of games, having all kinds of action, and then also just getting high all day. Yeah. And so, I mean, you can imagine, right? Like, I'm addicted to the action, to the gambling, to the drugs, to the alcohol, and then when I would lose everything, that next weekend I'm going through drug withdrawal and gambling withdrawal. This is not fun. Hello, bird. All right. Third, I think the bird's telling me to wrap it up. Third high is actually a surprising one potentially. But there is a definite high that comes when you finally lose everything. And it might not, like the word high might not be appropriate here, but there is definitely a sense of like tremendous relief when you've lost it all and there's no more action, there's no more bets to be placed. Yeah. It's like being spit out of the tiger's mouth. And like I said, it's not a high. It's not necessarily happy, but the word relief is what's coming through now as I'm talking about it. And I remember, yeah, I would bet all day Saturday, all day Sunday on the football games. And if I still had money left at the end of the weekend, there was this like yucky feeling knowing like, shit, I'm going to do this again next weekend. I'm going to ride this roller coaster all weekend next weekend too. And even if I was winning, like even if I was up a couple $100 or $1,000 or, you know, whatever it was, because I didn't have the money to play 1,000, 10,000, 20, like that's a whole nother league. I was betting $50, $100, you know, maybe if I really love something, $250, $500 max. But even if I was up hundreds of dollars, there was always still this like little bit of dread in my system that I would have to do it all over again the next weekend, right? Make the bets, ride the roller coaster, feel the feelings, and then also be drinking and doing drugs to self-medicate the whole time. And so every once in a while when I would finally lose everything, you know, it would be Sunday night or Monday night, or sometimes we would take everything we won through the weekend and then play it on Monday night to try to do double or nothing. And when you lose everything, yeah, there's such like a sense of relief that it's over, finally. And that relief, that freedom, that release, yeah, that was a really good feeling. It was a really good feeling to finally be like free from the chaos. And then, of course, you know, a week later or a day later, you get pulled back in or find more money or, yeah, convince somebody to loan you money because you got a sure bet or, you know, like all the degenerate addict and gambling addict things. And then it's back into the hell wheel back into that, chaos spiral. And what's scary too is it's like you only get to experience the relief of losing it all if you bet it all. And so that kind of gets paired on a behavioral level. And so on some level, and some folks will tell you this, like every gambler is really only gambling to lose everything, because that's like the ultimate payoff, is to actually be free of the whole spiral. But a lot of folks figure out a way to be comfortable in that chaos wheel. And I was not one of them. Like, it was fun for a minute, but like, shit, it was a lot uglier than it was pretty. And so it's probably why I don't gamble anymore. And I think, we'll close with this. There are two things that folks told me at different points in my journey that really stuck with me, that helped me stay quit, right? Or like stay away from gambling again. The first was my uncle, my mom's oldest brother. He passed away a couple years back. Love you, Uncle Bill. And he told me when he saw that I was like really starting to get into it, like him and his brother and his dad, right? My grandfather and my other uncle. He said, look, get a book and write down everything. Right? And write down your wins, write down your losses, so that you have an accurate record of the plus minus here. Because you're going to tell yourself you're up when you're not, and when you're down, you're going to pretend like you're not down as far as you are. And I didn't do that the whole time, but there were different points in time where I tried to do like controlled gambling. And so part of the way I convinced myself I could do that was by keeping a book. Yeah, and without exception, I think there were maybe three different times I did it. Yeah, I thought I was like maybe up a little or down a little, but like near even. And I was actually like hundreds of dollars in the hole. And so like that advice and then those experiences definitely gave me perspective on how warped my perspective got when I was in the grip of the gambling addiction. And then the other piece of advice that really helped me as I was making my exit at the very end was a guy that sponsored me in the 12-step programs. He said, look, with the amount of money you're playing with, which again, a couple $100 max, right, you're not going to change your life significantly if you win. And he was right. Like if I bet $200, $300 on a football game and win, I mean, I wasn't buying a house with that. I wasn't taking a week vacation, right? But if I lost, it would have a significant impact on my life. And that was also true, right? Like if I was losing a couple $100 every weekend, I mean, that's a rent payment. And there have been many occasions where the rent was due and I didn't have it because I thought I had a sure thing going on a Monday night, or on a 2-team parlay, or whatever it was. And so just something about the practicality of that comparison, right? Like you're not betting enough to change your life in a good way, but you are betting enough to change your life in a shitty way. Yeah, it really just hit. And I was also open at that moment in time because my buddy had just passed away, and the pain of losing a bunch of money had kind of opened my eyes and my ears. And so, that piece of wisdom, and then also the piece of wisdom from my uncle, were two big inputs that I think helped move me along my journey into and then out of gambling addiction. Yeah, and I don't have like a miraculous, cure-all for folks. Like generally what I've come to understand is when it comes to any behavior, you're going to do it until the cost of doing it outweighs the return on investment, right? Like until something becomes too expensive or has too many consequences, we're going to keep doing it for whatever little payoff we get. And so if you're in the grip, or you can relate to some of this, I don't know, bet more, lose faster. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there are folks who specialize in gambling addiction, right? And they can help facilitate different insights and perspectives and, create different conversations. So, I mean, there's professional help out there. But I don't necessarily have like a solution or an answer for you. For me, I was already in my recovery process, specific to drugs and alcohol. And then once gambling became like as ugly, right? Like once the consequences were there, similar to the drugs and alcohol, then I just popped it into the don't touch this ever again category, right? And applied all my abstinence-based recovery to gambling as well as drugs and alcohol. So that's what worked for me. Yeah. But that being said, I mean, this morning watching the friggin' the football intro show with the gambling everywhere and all the lines and all the spreads, and I can start thinking like I know some stuff. Like, oh yeah, this quarterback's on this team now and they got a good offense, and that other team isn't great. Oh, they can cover 4 points. They can, I can double my money real quick, That thought process gets cooking, man. I'm just super grateful that I've done enough work at this point that I can smell that thing cooking and then be able to reach out and have conversations with folks who get it, jump on here, share with y'all, think out loud. Because it's a lot easier to spot my BS when I'm sharing out loud. Yeah. My baloney don't feel like baloney when it's inside my own head. So if you're dealing with something similar, or this specifically, just try sharing with folks who get it, who understand it, and also who don't condone the behavior either, Or you can give me a shout, like I'm down to chat. All right, cool. Yeah, it feels good, man. I'm glad I got to share on this. Because a lot of times when I talk about recovery, it's much more drug, alcohol focused. But the truth is, gambling was the third ingredient in my addiction spiral. And I really do feel like it accelerated the whole process with the extreme swings of winning and losing. And so it feels good to talk about and name and share a little bit about. All right. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. Pay attention to your shenanigans, Share honestly with folks if you feel like you might be cooking up some BS in your brain. And if I can help, definitely feel free to reach out. But otherwise, as always, just be gentle with yourself. It's a crazy world, so might as well be easy on ourselves, not add to the chaos and the insanity. All right, y'all. Love you, and see you a little further down the road.